Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, thanks for being here today and the work that you're doing. I have some questions. Like many of my colleagues, I'm just starting to look through the discussion draft that's out. And I know that you've undoubtedly played a role in working with some members of the committee on this. So if you can help me with some of these things. Is it true that under the bill, an employer could be subject to 8% tax even if they offer a worker an employer-sponsored health care policy?
Yes, I think that is accurate, that there are some ways, if it isn't determined to be credible coverage, that you could have the pay-or-play provision.
And I think it's all, if I'm reading it correctly, isn't it also true that if the employee decided to go with the through their own plan, the employer could still end up having to pay if they went through the exchange, I guess it is? Tell me how that process works. Because an employee could refuse the plan from the employer, correct?
I must confess.
The people behind you are shaking their head yes. So,
I am not familiar with that specific provision. I'd be glad to get back. If you want to give me the questions, I will immediately respond. I'm just not.
Well, my understanding is that an employer could offer an employer-sponsored health coverage. Then the worker could turn it down and enroll in an exchange plan. The employer would still be liable for the 8% tax, even though providing the employer-sponsored care could have been cheaper, is what I understand. So if you could take a look at that.
We'll definitely take a look at that. Thank you.
And is it true that in order for an employer to avoid paying the 8% tax, the employer has to offer a plan that the new commissioner deems to be a qualified health benefit plan?
That is correct.
And can an employer require an employee to accept the employer-provided health care coverage?
Can you require an employee to accept it? I don't know, again, how the provisions are drafted. I'm not aware of any mandatory in a private insurance market how you mandate that anyone accept a plan, but I haven't read the outline of the bill. Sorry.
Do you know if these provisions are states and federal government considered employees under this draft?
States and federal government
are considered employers.
Mr. Walden,
under
can I just,
employers?
you know, I'm not trying to stop you, but I mean, it's the draft, the discussion draft is, you know, put together by the members, and I don't know that she can necessarily be the person to comment on what's in it. But I mean, if you want to continue,
we are on my time here.
I'm going to give you some extra time, but I just want you to understand that we didn't ask her here to comment on the provisions of the draft per se.
Oh, I thought earlier she was indicating support of the draft, that the administration supports this draft or the concepts in this draft. Is that not true?
Sure, I said it, we support the principles that prompted the draft. I'm sorry, I am not. The draft came out on Friday, and I didn't write the draft, and I'm not intimately familiar. But I'd be happy to answer questions if you have questions for me. I'd be.
I mean, I don't want to stop you, but I just
reclaiming my time, if I could. So. You haven't read this draft either, then?
I have read it. I don't have it memorized.
Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate that. You're ahead of me. I haven't read it fully, but I also